All right, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum, shalom. Welcome, 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 everyone. We are back and we are live. And tonight we're talking about the Centennial Blueprint. We're looking at starting from the Negro History Week to Black sovereignty, engineering the next 100 years. When we start out with the understanding, and Doc, you can fill us in, the history of Black Negro Week, and we know that started with Carter G. Woodson. And
he actually started with Negro Day.
Oh, it started with a day.
Well, it started with a day. Yeah. Yeah. So when they got a week, we was doing it then. Then you throw in the criticism that Woodson got because it's in February, and that's shortest month of the year, this and that. But he had I want to say his logic was it's Douglas's birthday, Lincoln's birthday, and there was someone else, some other reason that he chose February. It wasn't because it's 28 days. And it kind of, it's one of those signs of Negro silliness. We'll sit there and we'll talk about that. Well, they gave us 28 days. They didn't give you anything. Let's be very clear about that. That was not from anyone. What Woodson did was homegrown and home built. Make no mistake about it. Nobody gave him anything.
Wow. And so when he came up with this idea of Negro Day, at this point, was he already on the area with Booker T? Was he already at the school, or this was prior to that?
Woodson, I don't know if he was at Tuskegee. I doubt that he was at Tuskegee with Booker T. Washington. Woodson is one of our luminaries in regards to the history. There are principally maybe 5 individuals that we can point to that deserve the title of father of Black history, or African American history, or diasporic history. And Cheikh Anta Diop is one. Woodson is one. John Hope Franklin, from slavery to freedom, he fits in that conversation. And of course, you can't have discussions about Black folk and intellectualism without talking about Du Bois.
Interesting. So now we are at the 100-year time frame from which the father of Black history, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, established what he called Negro History Day. He understood that a people who are ignorant of their past, are people who have no future. He saw that the world was being taught to despise Black people, and he knew the only way to conquer that lie was the cold, hard truth of our greatness. Now, back then of that time, Doc, that type of thinking, I would think in 1926 was kind of revolutionary, to go ahead and say, look here, we need to have a day for Negro history in a time where they didn't even want to see you. Nevertheless, give a day to honor what we have, the greatness that's within ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at Woodson's logic. Woodson wrote this piece that, for me, represents him in his totality. And the piece was titled something like, "Why not kill or why not destroy the Negro if he has offered nothing to society?" And of course, Woodson is being facetious, but he's pointing out that if you want to understand why Black folk have historically been looked at as almost pariah, what what would be the proper word for something that is that sucks the life out of other people, out of
mm,
societies, that we are, you know, we contribute nothing. And Woodson is basically saying, if that's our story, they have every right to hunt us down and lynch us and kill us because you haven't done anything. You haven't
mm,
contributed one thing to society. So you should be killed. You should be hunted down. And Woodson's point is quite simply that that's the lens, and it takes us back to Du Bois's idea of being able to view the world through certain lenses. If white society, and they are, viewing black folk through a lens that they are parasitic, that they have not contributed anything whatsoever to this society or any other society, how do you think they're going to look at you? And they're looking at you as if you're worthless. So the idea of Negro History Day, Negro History Week, and then Black History Month is set to combat that. And a very strong argument could be made that the foremost beneficiaries of Black History Month, that knowledge, are going to be white folk.
mm,
And that's, of course, when you're talking about the 1920s, you're talking about this post World War I period.
mhm,
School segregation is still going on, and this is in many ways one of the foremost problems that we have. We've always taken it for granted, and this was occurring, I guess you could say, within the segregated school system, but we've taken it for granted that Black schools are teaching Black history. Once integration hits, you can't take that for granted anymore because
mm,
white folk are now going to be in charge and in control of the curriculum that you're offering. Very much like what you're looking at right now in society. They dictate what is a classic. It's one of the reasons why it pains me to say this, but it's the truth. The autobiography of Malcolm X is not in print anymore. They do special runs of it, but it's not in continuous print, which clearly signals, I'm, as you know, I'm not a conspiracy person, but it clearly signals that it's not making money because these people would, I don't care if you're talking about the satanic verses. I don't care what book you're talking about. If it sells, they're going to put it on a bookshelf and get that money for it. So
mm,
Malcolm is not selling. But back to the earlier point of them controlling the curriculums, once integration occurs, the idea of Black folk learning from Black teachers is one that has to be examined. Because in many ways, when you really, really, really think about the greatest resource that a people could ever have, Winston Churchill said, any nation could rise if it focuses its attention and resources upon books and bottles, meaning you
mm,
need to be having some children and you need to educate those children according to your way. We're not doing that.
mm,
And it's the reason why, and this is one of the things I've written about and I consistently talk about. It pains me when, and God bless her soul, I pray that she's resting with our people, Asada Oglu Bala Shakur, Joanne Chesimard. When I ask my students how many of them have ever read Asada, maybe one or two hands will go up in an auditorium of 200 students. Maybe one or two, if we're lucky.
mm,
But when I ask them, have you read The Diary of Anne Frank? 80 to 90% of the hands go up. And when you think about Woodson's legacy, you look at the idea of pouring into your children, into the next generation. We need to have significant conversations about who's pouring into our children.
Exactly. Mhm. Definitely agree. I want to take this time out to welcome our people we got up in the house. Let's see, we got Earth Angel Remix, Peace and Blessings Queen. We're glad you're here and you're on time.
Get out of here. Get out of here. She must have been a time change or something going on.
We also have Brother Willie Rivers, Peace and Blessings, Brother Willie. We're glad you're here.
Yes,
Twin
brother.
Pyramid, Peace and Blessings, Big Bro. You know we're glad you're here.
Glad to have you.
All right, all right. So, and also dealing with our topic tonight, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that history is above all things the most attractive and best qualified to reward our research. But he didn't stop there. He taught us that the purpose of knowing that history is to lead us to self-knowledge. He said that we must accept our own and be ourselves. Dr. Woodson gave us the data of our past. The messenger gave us the direction for our future. He taught us that we can't just be historians who admire the past. We must be engineers who build a new reality, understanding and knowing our past. So, you know, in the picture that we have Carter G. Woodson and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, two powerful men of their time, and I would still say and of our time as well. Mm-hmm. Doc, do you think, well, no, I don't think so, because when did Carter G. Woodson die?
You know what? I don't know when Woodson died. That's an interesting question, and I can tell you why I'm not aware of when he died. Mm-hmm. Because ASALA, his organization, the Association for the Study of African Life and History, is still going on. It never stopped. Mm. So his work, it's almost as if his physical body's not here, but his organization and his worth is still here. But I would imagine Woodson probably died in what, the 50s, 60s?
Mm. And you know, so I wonder, did these two ever meet?
Oh, I don't know.
Because I think that would
April 3rd, 1950.
They met?
No, he died.
Oh, that's when he died. Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
He dies on April 3rd, 1950.
Mm.
Which is, if you situate it within the proper historical context, you're talking about post-World War II. Mm. And by 1945, 46, you have Charles Hamilton Houston taking on the Heman Sweat case. That's going to be sort of the first major impenetrable strategy that Black folk are going to be able to use in American courts to knock down school segregation. So Woodson would not have lived to have seen, and thank God he didn't live to see, the surrender of Black educational institutions that occurs with 1954 with the Brown v. Board 1. And then, of course, you have Brown v. Board 2 in 1955. That's a moment that I wish someone would really, some scholar would really take a look at that moment, because in the conversations surrounding Brown, because we take, and I deal with this every single semester. I ask my students who had the better educational institution in 1954 when Brown was handed down, black folk or white folk, because you have a distinctly different black educational system versus a white educational system. 100 times out of 100, my students immediately answer white schools were better.
Oh, wow.
Immediately.
Mm.
And it brings up and it gnaws at me, it sticks in my craw. It's one of the clearest signs that our people don't understand the educational process. The study after study has proven this, that the single most important determinant in a student learning has nothing to do with new books, has nothing to do with new facilities. It's the person who is standing in the front of that classroom.
Mm.
That's the determination. But we've allowed over Brown to today. So we're talking about what, 70, 80 years. We've allowed for the black teacher, outside of the inspirational part of it,
Mm-hmm.
to be rendered mute, to kind of be irrelevant. Because it really does, it's the same principle behind Othello. Does it really matter which actor performs as Othello? In many ways, it doesn't. They're going to deliver the lines differently, but the lines will always be the same. So in many ways, what you're seeing with black educators at the present moment, and it's been this way since you introduced standardized tests, these end of the road tests, and attach teachers' jobs to student performance with these end of the road tests, you're locked into what it is that you can spend your time on teaching.
Mm.
And
Mm.
because you're so locked in, you're in many ways receiving a script, and you just get up and you recite this script. We had a situation here in Houston. And of course, Houston is always going to be, Houston and Austin are
Mm-hmm.
always going to be attacked by the governor because they are sanctuary cities. They are these large urban areas. They came in and took over HISD, the Houston Independent School District, and revamped everything they've said, to the point, and I have some former students who are teachers, and they told me, they said, "Doc, look here, I have someone standing in my classroom with a stopwatch, timing how many seconds I spend on something and ensuring that I move on to the next thing." And they time that as well. So when you talk about this erasure that is occurring of African American history, although I believe it is extremely violent and hostile, it is done smooth as butter
Mm.
because they don't say anything. They just quite simply create these end of the road tests and tell the teacher, listen, if your kids don't pass this, tell the principal this. If they don't pass this, if they don't have a certain pass rate, all of you will be fired. So now you tell me,
Mm.
are you going to direct your students to read the Diary of Anne Frank, which there are going to be some questions on the Diary of Anne Frank there on that end of the road test? Or are you going to buck the system and say, forget that, I'll embrace poverty and homelessness? They're reading Malcolm.
Mm. Mm-mm. Very, 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 very interesting. Very interesting. So if you're going to truly be yourself, you'll be out of a job, basically.
Well, but I think that it goes further than that,
Mm.
because where are the teachers learning what they learn? Come on, you know these educated Negroes.
Mm,
You very rarely, and I would put the number, and I'm being generous, at 3 to 4% have ever read How to Eat to Live. Couldn't tell you who wrote Message to the Black Man.
mm.
Their head has been filled with what they're supposed to teach to those end of the road tests. And when people, I had some students say this to me. They said, yeah, doc, we really, we enjoy your class. We enjoy learning that, but it's not going to help us pass that teacher certification test. And that's what it comes down to.
Mm.
So are you willing to learn about Kwame Nkrumah, Tupac Amaru Shakur, Paul Robeson, when at the end of the day, you need to know about Thomas Jefferson, James Madison,
Mhm.
and Andrew Jackson. So you're behind the eight ball, even as an educator. And how long will you be focused upon that till it
Mm.
becomes the
Mhm.
only thing that you know? It reminds
Right.
me of The Invisible Man. Who was the brother that wrote The Invisible Man? Ralph Ellison.
Ralph Ellison.
Yeah, Ralph Ellison. Ellison has a line in The Invisible Man, and one of my friends, John Terry Calhoun. Calhoun, this is probably his favorite line of any book that he's read, and his brother is a prodigious reader. The line is, "Keep that nigger boy running."
Mm.
And when you look at what
Mm.
happens to the black educator, that's it. They're going to keep him so busy with stuff that is not aimed at liberating Black America or minds. He doesn't have time to do anything else. And then when you factor in there that, yeah, it's cutesy around the age of 22, 23, 24, but move him to 34, where he's got married and he has some children. He has some adult responsibilities. He has to keep that job. And if anything, he'd better scratch his head when it don't itch and shuffle it
Mhm.
when he don't hear music, if he ever intends on moving up within that system, because who determines if he moves up? Who are they beholden to?
Mhm. Exactly. Exactly. Doc, when we're looking at the psychology of commemoration, we're
Mhm.
going to look at and try to understand, why does Black America have a generation at risk of forgetting our past? Right. So when we look at the psychological roots of forgetting,
Mhm.
forgetting isn't accidental. It's often a result of a a disrupted memory transmission. So historically, if you agree, historically, our way of learning our history was passed from elders. We learned it at churches, we learned it at community institutions and grassroots organizations. But then those institutions were weakened by mass incarceration, economic displacement, digital fragmentation, and the decline of traditional households. Would you agree with those are issues that cause our young people not to know their history?
I would agree, but I think you have to go back. And ironically, he's one of the most conservative brothers that whose work we actually read and respect. Alex Haley,
Mhm.
autobiography of Malcolm X, but I'm talking about roots here, as Huey P. Newton would say it, roots, with his Louisiana accent.
Mhm.
Haley does a masterful job in showing how the Black tradition is transmitted orally. And if you watched the show Roots, John Amos would hold the next generation up and would in many ways say, you're from Jufaray, and would even tell God, the only thing that is greater than you, meaning this child.
Mhm.
We're an oral people. We had an oral tradition. That's how we pass down knowledge of each other. So when you're talking about the erosion of that, one of the foremost ways that the way is forgotten is our homes have been destroyed, our families have been disrupted, and you have a proclivity amongst young folk to believe that anyone above the age of 25, let alone 40, really don't have anything that they can say to them
Mm.
about history, family legacy, decorum, anything. So now you have a situation where people are just simply existing and reacting. And one of the things that we would hear during the 1980s was quite simply the problem with African American males is because the father is not in the home. We heard that ad nauseum, as if the father were in the home, he would be able to tame these boys and civilize these boys and what have you. And the argument was that they're learning manhood by the brothers on the block. Well, at the present moment, one has to say that many of our brothers are still learning their version and developing their understanding of manhood from the brothers on the block. But the same thing is occurring, probably worse, with Black women.
Mm.
Because in every way, when you look at how they have become, and I'll use that term, how they become. And I cannot tell you how many times I've heard even educated sisters buck up and say, "Who gonna check me, boo? Who gonna check me?"
Mm.
Okay. Now, where does that come from?
Mm.
There's been a erosion and an erasure. My favorite, and I know you've heard me say his name on here many times. It's the greatest rap name in the history of hip hop. Okay.
Mm.
Ran verbalize a funkin' lesson, brother Jay. Okay. From X Clan fame.
Mhm.
He has this one line where he says, ignorance is not a trend.
Mm.
And if you take that line and you really think about it and examine it, and it really addresses what we're talking about now, the forgetting of the past.
Mhm.
All you need is one generation that doesn't know.
Mhm.
And all the decades and not centuries of knowing within your family, regardless of what it is lost forever.
Mhm.
It's one of the reasons why I tell my students, I'm like, when you go home for Thanksgiving, find your way to that kitchen while the food is being made. Because more than likely, there is a dish, a dessert that Big Mama is known for. You need to be there and watch her put that together. Because if
Exactly.
she enters the grave before any of you learn what that is, it's gone.
Mhm.
And that extends not just it extends much further than food. It goes all the way to family history. Who are you and where did you come from?
Mhm.
I've met people who can't tell you where their grandparents are from.
Oh, wow.
So you're telling me that
Mm.
y'all are from Detroit, Michigan, and all you know is your mama, um, and maybe one or two of her siblings. That's an issue. That's a major, major issue. And it's one of the things that even within my own family, I have a cousin named Dita Evans. Some people ask me in our family, we're like, oh, where that name from? Why she named Dita? She's named after our cousin who was murdered by her husband. Her,
Oh,
na-
wow.
her name was Dita Rose. So we
Mm.
we have that sort of understanding. But if you lose that, Dita is just a name then. It holds no significance. It holds no reverence because you
Right,
don't know where it came from.
right. Mhm. Yeah. And you know, and that's our next topic. Well, not our next topic, but our next section about why we don't remember. Trauma avoidance. Some families avoid discussing painful histories like lynching, migration, police violence, and poverty because it's emotionally overwhelming. They want to protect the next generation.
Mhm.
They internalize shame and struggle. Silence becomes a coping mechanism, but silence also becomes a vacuum.
Mhm.
Um, is there, protecting the next? We're not going to tell them we want to protect them. We want to protect them.
Mhm.
But in the reality, that's really hurting them. Would you agree, Doc?
Well, certainly. Well, certainly. But there's a balance and a fine line that one has to walk. When you're talking about personal family trauma,
Mm-hmm.
it needs to be discussed. It needs to be addressed. I've been involved with Black women who have shared with me ghastly things that happened within their home, having an older sister raped,
Mm,
having a younger sister molested by family members who lived in the house. And
mm,
yet you look me in the face and say, but didn't that happen to me? I doubt that. I really do doubt that. There is a need for you to know what it is that you have inside of you, what you were born with. One of the things that I was born into, and this
mm,
is my very first memory. I can't remember anything past this, but my very first memory of this world, I was sitting on my grandmother's steps with the rest of my cousins. Me and my cousin Shannon, we were the youngest ones. And if you look over my shoulder straight back,
mm-hmm,
you see the little girl that's sitting on her mother's lap.
mm-hmm,
That's my cousin Shannon, and that's her mother, my aunt Barbara. So we're sitting on the stairs, and my uncles, they lived on the top floor, and we're looking through the rail. And there's probably, because there was a bunch of us, there's probably 7 or 8 grandkids there. And we were watching our uncles play this game with one of their friends.
mm-hmm.
And they had his arms up on their shoulders, and they were walking, and they kept saying, move your legs, move your legs, move your legs. Man, you got to move your legs. I don't remember anything before that, but I do remember that game. Of course, years later, I understood I was watching a drug overdose.
Oh, wow.
That's what I was watching. They were upstairs doing drugs, and their friend did too much. And they were trying to bring him, they ain't had no Narcan back then. They were trying to bring him back to the land of the living.
Mm,
My Aunt Barbara and my mother, they both told me, they said, listen, you see what it is. You see what you got on both sides. My cousin Shannon,
Mm.
our fathers were brothers and our mothers were sisters. So we had the exact same family. And they told us, they said, listen, on one side, you got IV drug users, dope heads. And on the other side, you got alcoholics, violent alcoholics who hung out with other alcoholics. I chuckle because of one of my dad's friends, Howard K. Mack, without fail, on either Saturday morning or Sunday morning, Howard K. Mack would call our house and he would say, oh, Charlie, Charlie, Charlie. That's my nickname, Charlie. Charlie,
Mm.
go to the front door. And the phone is right by the front door. He said, I need you to look out. You know what he want me to look for?
What?
His car. He done got so drunk. And this was every weekend. He done got so drunk, you don't know where he left his car at. Okay.
Wow.
And knowing that family history, that trauma, I don't shield or hide anything about my past. My mother had 7 brothers. 5 of them died of drug overdose.
Mm.
So what do you think gonna happen to me
Right.
if I go that way?
Right.
What's happening? Am I supposed to be like, oh no, man, I'm cut from a different cloth? No, you gonna be just like them.
Right.
And so I pridefully say I set my environment up so that I could avoid that. And a central part of that was the conscious decision. I've never had a drink of alcohol in my life, and I've never smoked or done any drugs because I know that when I go, hey, we the best at whatever we do. Y'all look up in here and be like, man, Doc looking kind of rough around the edges. Got my cash app flashing around the bottom, talking about send me something. So yeah, so
Wow.
that idea of hiding familial trauma is something that needs to be addressed, and it's not even for me just familial trauma. It's the idea of wrongdoing, because the allowance of wrongdoing followed by an invitation to the wrongdoer for family functions, for gatherings, for things like that. Like nothing has happened or is going on. Like this person is a pillar of Black America is instructive to those who are around and know. They're like, oh, well, let me get out of here and hustle a little bit. I'm still going to be welcomed, into the family.
Right. Wow. And then the next part that we think that makes our young people don't want to learn or forget our history is the younger generation is immersed in hyperspeed media, algorithm distraction, identity shaped by aesthetics rather than lineage. The past feels slow and irrelevant or optional unless intentionally framed as power. That trap right there, Doc, is a very big trap. And I call it a trap because we didn't have social media when we were growing up. We didn't have the cell phones and all that. To go outside was the biggest part of our day. But now they're dealing with this stuff.
I remember one guy, he was on TikTok or something, and he was trying to explain to the present generation why they shouldn't mess with our generation. He said, do you not understand that we were darn near feral? When we got up in the morning, our parents kicked us out the house and told us to go ahead and do whatever you want to do. And one guy had asked him, I think this is what spurred his rant. I don't believe y'all. because who would allow their child to drink out of a water hose when there's a sink in the house? And the guy said, we weren't allowed inside. He said, what don't y'all understand that about that?
Mm.
He said, to show you how unsupervised we were, at 10 o'clock, all TVs went to the same message. It is 10 o'clock at night. Do you know where your children are? As if they had been forgot that they had children. So in many ways, we grew up in a much different world. We grew up in a world where we interacted with each other, where we had to talk to each other. You had to navigate social relations and things like that. Now, many of my students, they don't know how to, not all of them, but many of them, they don't know how to sit down and have a conversation with you. They don't know how to really answer a question.
Mm.
One of my very good friends, Mario Martin, he works in social services, and he was doing some hiring for his agency. And he says that he's interviewing a male,
Mhm.
and he says by about minute 3, he said, I knew something was wrong because he didn't really look up at me. He said he's always looking down.
Oh, wow.
He was writing the question that Mario was asking him in a live face-to-face interview, putting it into some type of AI prompter. And he had to wait until the answer came, and then he would read it, and then he would lift his head up and say whatever it said on there.
Wow.
They're
That
in
is crazy.
and they're addicted to it. One of the one of the jokes within the family is that, I know that people look at me and say that I'm probably, my social calendar is full. I'm probably the life of the party and all of that type of thing. Alas, that is not true. Okay. My phone, my phone hasn't rang in, it did ring on New Year's. Or no, it didn't ring. I got text messages from people who were like, Happy New Year. Other than that, my phone, I don't even carry the phone with me. And I think that
Mm.
people have said, why even call him? Because he's not going to answer the phone. This phone could be anywhere. My phone could be at Kroger. Okay. Who knows where the phone is going to be at?
Mhm.
They, we used to refer to laptops as the appendage, your attachment. You had some people who would never go anywhere without their laptop. They always had it with them.
Mhm.
This is the cell phone for these people, and they're
Mhm.
always plugged in. They have those ear pods in. They have this going. There, you would think that they didn't miss a thing,
Mhm.
and I would argue that they don't miss any foolishness, but anything that is worthwhile in their life, they're not interested in it. They've developed it's sort of like when you have a person who uses an artificial sweetener for whatever
Mhm.
reason, and they get used to that being the level of sweetness that they take in, give them
Right.
sugar and see if it does not make their ears pop and their head fly back because it's so strong. They
Mm.
got used to artificial sweeteners, artificial conversations, to the point where an actual conversation, they can't even hold it. They don't know
Mm.
what to do with that.
Wow. And that's deep right there in and of itself. And then the next phase that we have with people not remembering is systemic memory suppression.
Hmm.
This is the part that people underestimate. Forgetting is not just psychological, it's political.
Mhm.
School systems, media industries, and culture institutions have minimized Black resistance, sanitized Black struggle, elevated individual success stories over collective movements.
Mhm.
This creates a generation that knows Rosa Parks was tired, but that she was not trained. They know MLK had a dream, not that he had demands. So, Doctor, first one, I want you to deep, if you agree with it, forgetting is not just psychological, it's political.
Yeah, it's political, it's personal, it's strategic at times. You remember when I got sick,
Mm-hmm.
I was out off of work for like 8, 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
I use that to my benefit. I'll say this in public. I use it to my benefit. If there's a meeting or something that I didn't want to go to, oh man, look here, man, my foot is killing me. I ain't gonna be able to make it down there. There's some people who, honestly, I don't like,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think that I'm unusual. But me being sick gave me the perfect excuse. I told people I had amnesia. So you came up to me and you started talking. Where I know you from?
Mm.
Okay, okay. Now you, and before long they give up and they'll just wave if they see me or whatever. Yeah, I don't, it's strategic. So when you're talking about larger social movements, I see people doing that, fiending, and this is not talking about a perspective. This is not looking at a car crash and three people have three different perspectives. That's not what's going on. What they're doing to go forward with the car crash analogy, they're denying that a crash occurred because they work for the insurance company.
Mm.
One of my one of my brother-in-laws, he always getting in trouble. He got caught up. They had given him use of a vehicle. He wound up, he's supposed to go out and steal or something like that. He wound up losing control of the car,
Mm.
wrecking the car. Well, the people who gave him access to the car said he stole it.
Oh, wow.
And that's when it came out. No, I ain't stolen nothing because now, he might, stick something in his pocket, but he said, I ain't no liar. Okay. The insurance company goes to him and they tell him, listen, if you get up on the stand and you will confess to the fact that you'll say that they gave you the car, that you didn't steal it, we'll get you an attorney for your case. And that's exactly what he did.
Mm.
Okay, he got up there and he was telling the truth, but he would have lied if he, if it benefited him. And you see this occurring with this revisionism of the past. And if you're not careful, especially now with AI, this is
Mm.
one of this is a frightening frontier because they're able to recreate a historical event in a documentary style that will convince you that their version is the correct version because these people, these dim-witted people, there was this commercial, I'm sure you saw this commercial where the guy had put on the internet that he was a fashion model
Mm-hmm.
and was meeting this girl from this date, and the woman he's talking to says, and she gonna know you ain't, that you lying. He said, no, I ain't. He said, if it's on the internet, it's gotta be true, ain't it? And that's
Mm.
that's what we're looking at. These people who they will get their information, and that becomes the gospel. We used to refer to them and I believe that God has cursed us. We used to refer to these types of people back in the 80s and the 90s as one book scholars. They read a book, and everything is going to pivot off of whatever was in that book. They don't know enough to understand anything about the construction of knowledge, but it was in that book. So that's, and then we gravitated to something worse, and it was the YouTube video scholar.
Mm,
They watch
mm,
YouTube videos and they know this is, oh,
mhm,
no. This is, we're on a whole nother level now.
mhm.
These people are getting information on for 15, 20 seconds and feeling like they can go to war with the police.
Right.
Now, if you will tell the police, shut my door, I know my rights. You violating my rights and this and that. And you're just sitting here just amazed. Where they get this legal knowledge from? TikTok,
Mhm,
YouTube.
mhm.
That's an issue, because now when you're talking about presenting in front of people, people may know Malcolm or
Mhm.
know who he is. Let me say it that way. People may know who the Black Panther Party for self-defense is. But now the way that they're able to take you, I saw something that frightened me. Woman put up that her daughter had never met her father, and he ended up getting killed. And she was graduating,
Mm.
and she wanted to know, could people do anything to create a memorable thing? Look here. They took that rascal apparently out the grave, and he was boogie woogieing at the graduation. Okay.
Mm.
And I'm like, they took a still picture and put it on somebody's face that was dancing, and you could not tell that that was not actual footage.
Oh,
So
wow.
if you're able to do that now with technology, and this takes me back to something that Asada Shakur says. And Asada said, quit letting people take your picture. These people going to develop technology that is going to be so convincing that you're going to be sitting there knowing that you didn't do that, thinking like, wait a minute, hold on, shit, that dude look like me.
Exactly.
That's where we're at now.
Exactly.
When you have people who have no foundation whatsoever in history, culture, oh, you've in many ways sort of obliterated the idea of knowledge,
Mm.
because now anything goes. There is no level or checking of something, because if a person says, well, I need to see, I, you know I need another source, all they're gonna do is gonna make another video
Right. Right.
and tell you, yeah, well, this is a different perspective.
Hmm.
Before they done, you gonna believe that Minister Farrakhan killed Abraham Lincoln, and they're gonna tell you, I saw it on video.
Right. Right.
What you mean? I saw
Exactly.
the video.
Exactly.
So in many
Mm.
ways, knowledge has been destroyed.
Mm. Wow. I want to take this time to welcome Emerald Jules to the program. Peace and blessings, Queen. We're glad you're here. And also, Doc, Earth Angel asked you a question. She says, Doc, do you think?
I don't do talking and reading very well. I'm, I'm like a one trick pony. Don't think I can't multitask at all.
So she says, do you think this poor communication is contributed to the dishonest, manipulative behaviors that is so common nowadays?
I would say I separate the first part, poor communication, I don't think that because you have poor communication skills that you're necessarily going to be dishonest, manipulative. I think
Hmm.
those exist on two separate continuums, and I would almost want to argue that it's those who are silver tongued nowadays who are able to be scammers, who are able to finesse people out of their money and things like that. So I look at those as being two different things, but I do look at it as being a sign that we need to have for every occupation, we need to have ethics classes to
Mm.
teach people what is right and what is wrong. But the problem with that, and Karl Marx talked about this, Karl Marx said there's some people who are just too poor to be honest, too poor to have morals, because they're looking for any opportunity, any moment to alleviate their economic and financial suffering. And I think that you see a lot of that. But you also have to make some allowances to for children who will lie, manipulate, and what have you,
Hmm.
because they've learned the consequences of telling the truth. And so they grow up in a world, in a home, within a family. So I have a former student who told me, he said, look, we got beat up for doing something wrong, to the point where when we went to school, the teachers would see us with black eyes and all that, and they would call CPS and
Oh,
start
wow.
start a investigation. So I think you got a lot of factors that goes into that. There's some people who are, Lord knows, I done met a couple of them who are sociopaths, and they can't
Mm.
tell the truth. It just can't. And will sit around, and after they've lied to someone, will go sit in a corner or go get in their car and laugh hilariously that they got something over on someone, that they actually, believe me, it's a game to them. But then you have others who don't want to face the consequences, especially if they consider the consequences to be so extreme. So they
Hmm.
learn how to lie. They learn how to tell half truths to mislead.
Oh, wow. So the next thing we're going to look at, Doc, is the difference between celebrating history and weaponizing history.
Mm,
And it says celebrating history. Celebration is symbolic, ceremonial, often commercialized, focused on heroes, holidays, and feel good narratives. Celebration says, look at what we accomplished. It's passive, it's safe, it's easy co opted. Celebration is Black History Month posters in schools that bans teaching about race. You want to explain on that?
Well, I agree with that wholeheartedly. That knowledge in history has to do something. At its best, it does something. Think about, if we're talking about hip hop, and someone were to ask quite simply, who's the greatest MC to ever live?
Mhm.
My answer 100% immediately would be Rakim Allah, the microphone fiend, without a doubt. Now, that's something to tell someone, but it's a whole nother level if I explain to you why. It goes from being a conversation as far as entertainment to being a moment of intellectual illumination of a topic. The idea of celebration, you only celebrate with those that you know, with those that have been in the trenches with you. After the work is done, that's when a celebration occurs. They aren't talking about celebration. They're
Mhm.
talking about co-optation. They're talking about suffering you. Okay, okay, okay. This year we'll let you put up some posters,
Mhm.
but the curriculum isn't altered. the way things occur is not going to be changed. So there is no power involved in that. And what makes it even worse is quite simply, you're sitting here seeking inclusion, not liberation. And as long as you're seeking inclusion, those who have more power are going to dictate the terms of you to be included. And if what you're asking for, because you're not demanding, Black people do not make demands of white folk. And this is sort of like what we just saw happen in Venezuela.
Okay.
They went down there and they kidnapped the president and the first lady.
I said, God damn.
I mean, think about
that nigga, boy, I tell you.
They blew their shit up in public. This wasn't no black ops operation. They was blowing shit up. You could look from a hill and be like, yo, they blew that up and they blew that up and they housed your president and the first lady. I mean, really think about how bad you gotta be to go into somebody else's nation and kidnap their president, abduct their president, and then have the nerve to put it up on Twitter. of him sitting on the plane, all fucked up. That's power.
Exactly.
That's unbridled power.
Exactly.
What can you do against that? Nothing. You know, the days of us talking about revolutionary overthrow, a physical revolution. Nah, you better work on a revolution of your mind. Act like you in the Matrix. Okay? Because the truth of the matter, and you know, I'm in Texas, and so they have this secede Texas, especially when Obama was there. They were talking about secession. I asked these Texans, I said, listen, if y'all gonna do that, let me know. Because I'm gonna get my shit and leave. They have a, you know, I'm in the fighter planes. Raptor, look here. They got missiles that they could shoot from Dallas to hit this window right here in this classroom and decide how many people they want to kill. What we gonna do? Throw a book bag at it? So when you're talking about the idea of power, there comes a moment where, and I'll refer to it as the Mike Tyson moment. Yeah, but can you kick my ass?
Right.
And if you can't kick my ass, we ain't really got no problem. You got the problem, because I'm not going to do what you want me to do, and you can't make me do it. So when you're talking about the idea of weaponizing history, everybody weaponizes history. We do it. Our slant and our perspective, although historically based upon the facts, is still at the end of the day, hopefully advancing the Black agenda, reforming the Black image. It has to be doing something. But the problem that we have within Black America is that we're not able to weaponize our history and our perspective because you can't share it. They have to invite you on MSNBC. They have to invite you on these platforms. Or you're gonna be doing what we doing a YouTube recording and hoping that it reaches the masses of people.
Wow. And so we're going to talk about the weaponizing of history Weaponizing of history is different from celebrating history.
Mhm.
Weaponizing history is strategic, confrontational, analytical, and tied to a present day struggle. Weaponizing history says, look at what we survived, and here's how we fight now.
Mhm.
Weaponizing history exposes systems, identifies patterns, train political imagination, build collective disciplines, connects the past tactics to current conditions. This is Woodson's vision. This is Malcolm's method. This is Ella Baker's pedagogy. This is the part institution fears.
All I
That's
can
what the
say,
Jews do.
huh?
I said, is that what the Jews do? Is that their blueprint?
What I was gonna say is never again.
Mm,
Okay, never again. Now, when you propagate the idea of never again, it is already positioning you as the one who was done wrong.
mhm.
It doesn't have any room in there for you to say, so what did you do?
Right.
If I can say never again, anything that you say that is not supporting my position of victimhood, I can say, hey, you against us too, and
Mhm.
shut you right up. Think about it. The weaponizing of history. I am not a Holocaust denier. I have been to several of the sites that they would refer to as concentration camps.
Mm,
I've been there, so I know those things exist. I I was a fellow at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum up in D.C. So I've been behind the scenes to see what it is they do. You can go up in there, and it is so moving what the public goes through that you'll ask for a yarmulke before you leave and say, I'm
mm,
getting ready to be one of y'all because I want to, I want to protect y'all because this can never happen again. It's so convincing that the United States government pays reparations for something that didn't happen here every year. That's persuasive. That's powerful. One of the things that, and I don't criticize the Jews. My advice to my people is don't hate, emulate.
mhm,
Get past your hate and your oh, that ain't right. Get past that. Look at what they've done.
mhm.
And look at how to the point now that you go ahead and go out there and get your ass tore apart by saying anything. Okay, you better be independently wealthy if you do. And so that's persuasive. That's powerful. That is the weaponization of history. I want you to understand why we behave the way we do and why we need for you to support us. Period.
Mm,
And that's the message. Now, with all the pain, all the suffering, all everything that Black folk have been through, okay, being enslaved here in this land, okay,
mhm,
all of those things. Close your eyes and tell me what is the if I say Black image or Black people, what's the first thing that pops into people's mind? Something off of social media.
mm,
The idea of the injury of slavery is nowhere on the platform. You say, tell me about the Jews. What now? The Holocaust and the fact that, and this was one of the one of the moments where you ever had a situation where you knew that if somebody could kill you or whoop your ass, they would do it right then.
mhm.
I had those moments often but there's one particular that I'm thinking about right now. I was on a radio show, and they're talking about the Holocaust.
Okay.
I asked this question. I said, now words have meaning, and I don't want to be up here talking about something and I don't fully understand it. And they're like, oh, no, 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 we can explain this to you, blah, 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 as if I don't understand. And I said, well, my question that I won't clear it up is simply this.
Mm.
Define Holocaust for me. And they immediately went to the Jewish Holocaust. And I said, oh, okay, I get it now. I said, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about the major Holocaust. We're not talking about the transatlantic slave trade. We're not talking about the extermination of indigenous people to this land. We're talking about one that was about, what, maybe 10 years? And they were furious.
Mm.
That's weaponizing to the point where if I say Holocaust, you put Jew in front of it. That's
Exactly.
weaponization. And how do you do it? You inundate them with the same message over and over and over and over again. Black folk, we don't have a message. We have
Mm.
a brand. Our psychological instability has led us to not being able to really do anything. I mean, think about it this way. How is it possible? And I've seen this happen. I'm 55, so over 35 years, I've seen this happen several times. I've seen Negroes inside of a Black Studies program battle each other.
Mm.
I mean, really think about that. That the individuals that are supposed to be our scholars in building something are fighting against each other, jockeying against each other to get some resources from white folk, cutting each other's throat.
Mm.
It's moments like that for me, I just say there is no hope then. What can we do with that?
Exactly. Exactly. So the answer to the question of why the gap exists today, why our children are not learning our history, has an ABC answer. And the first part, A, they inherited celebration and not strategy. School teach Harriet Tubman as a hero, not Harriet Tubman as an intelligence operative who ran a guerrilla network. They teach MLK as a dreamer and not MLK as a radical critic of capitalism and materialism. Celebration removes the teeth. They were given representation and not liberation. Representation says we're visible. Liberation says we're free. Representation is a commercial product. Liberation is a threat.
Hmm.
They were taught to consume history, not inherit it. TikTok clips, activism that's only eye-catching, hashtag moments. History becomes content, not continuity. Would you agree with those, Doc? And would you elaborate?
My thing is the reason that they don't study history is, number one, they're in a different time. They're dealing with these little snippets. Who'd ever thought that we would ever have a situation where we long for, I'm sure you remember this, world history in 1 minute. That was one of the things that the news would do. They would tell you everything that was going on around the globe in 1 minute, which is ludicrous. How can you talk about everything that's going on around the globe in 60 seconds? Now they're doing it in 5, 3,
Mm-hmm.
2. If they're even talking about anything that is substantial and newsworthy. So you have that issue going on right now. Yet at the exact same time, our people, and let's be honest about it. So many of our people don't even know our history. And I'm talking about 50, 60, 70 years old. They weren't taught the history. They don't know the history. They have nothing nothing substantial that they can even share with younger folk if they were going to be heard. And young folk ain't really trying to hear them anyway.
Right.
They're more interested in going out to, get the next purse, the next Jordans or what have you, watching something on TV. So I think that the problem is multifold. And the idea of them consuming history, I don't know if they consume history. One of the primary problems that we have with history is we'll throw out 100 facts
Mm-hmm.
and then expect for them to put them together. They can't put them together outside of maybe making it chronological. And the idea of AI today, which is a wonderful tool, to be honest with you. But at the same time of it being a wonderful tool, if you don't know what question to ask,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost useless. And that's an issue that you don't know. You have access to it, but it's the equivalent of having access to the Library of Congress, the Vatican, what have you. Just because you can get in there don't mean that you're gonna learn anything.
Mm.
You don't know what to look for. And you honestly, when we're talking about, and I refuse to get involved with generational warfare because I don't believe that this generation is much worse than other generations. They're different, but I don't see them as worse. What many of our generation are saying about them is what was said about us by older folk. But one has to, in every way, teach them about the utility of history,
Mm-hmm.
why it's important and what you can do with it. The problem with that, one of the biggest roadblocks that we have is it has to be titillating to them. It has to be salacious because they have an appetite for arguing, for drama, and they're not the first generation that was like that. But they're definitely keeping that tradition going amongst our people.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I also think that when we're understanding why are we forgetting history, a few questions has to be asked, like who benefits when we forget? Who loses when we remember? Because memory is not neutral. Memory is a battlefield,
Mhm.
and commemoration is a weapon depending on who wields it. So I think we definitely have to be again to look at history, not just our history as a people, but also our family history that you touched on earlier today, because it all matters. It all matters. In order to correct the wrong, we have to call it out.
Mhm.
We have to call it out. Hiding it doesn't do anything to correct it. It just actually makes it worse. And the illustration that you gave us about your cousin having the name, I believe, of your aunt, but don't know why she's named that is really telling. And it's something that we have to begin to take charge of. We have to begin to take charge of what our future is, what our history was, and we have to use it as a weapon. The Jews do a great job at it. They really do. They do a great job at it. And we have to learn how to do it and to do it at every point. They never take a break. They don't take a day off.
Mhm.
They are consistently at it. And we have to be consistently at it. One of the things where you said, if you think black, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? And I'm quite sure for most people, the first thing comes to their mind is thief, criminal, this, that, or that, these negative things. But, we need to turn it around. What's the first thing come to your mind when you think black? God. Start thinking on a level higher than what they assume that you should be thinking of. So now we're gonna look at this quote unquote state of emergency. 2026 declaration by civil rights groups analyzing the DEI purge happening in federal agencies and what it means for the Black middle class. Doc, is this a state of emergency that will wipe out Black wealth?
I don't think it'll wipe out Black wealth, and I'll say it this way. I'm hard pressed to find wealthy Black people. Now I met some rich Black folk, but wealth is a whole nother ball game that very few people are able to deal with. Wealth is one of the signs of wealth is that if you pull what it is that you have off the market, the world will shake. Think about it from this standpoint. What if someone who owned gas decided, you know what, we ain't gonna sell gas on Tuesday and Thursday? The world would shake. Versus Oprah Winfrey. When the Oprah show went off, I was abroad when it went off. And when I came back, you know what I found? They had just slid another show into that slot. So the idea of being such a major difference maker is different. Now, when you're talking about the idea of DEI, the truth of the matter is that Black folk were not the primary beneficiaries of DEI. So with DEI going away, you shouldn't have been those that were hurt the most if that's what was going on, but that's not what was going on. They were purging government agencies. And let's be honest, when you're talking about the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, that's what the so-called Black middle class, that's what they relied upon. They work for the government. And when those jobs contract and they go away, yeah, you're going to have some problems. And the idea of these people having wealth or even being rich is a fallacious argument. Because how long did it take for them to have to go get in a food line to get some money? And they're living in a $1.3 million house. And you don't have $300 in the bank. So if anything, it should have been a hallelujah moment, a wake-up call in regards to how we're handling our finances, how we are living. Are we living at our means, if not beyond our means? Those are questions that you have to answer with your individual family finances. But your larger point and your larger question about, is it going to impact and destroy the Black middle class? I don't believe there is a middle class. That's some stuff that people have made up. What they're terming the middle classes are actually the money handlers and managers for the wealthy and the elite. These people that we're talking about are just workers. They're the grease inside the machine of capitalism. They're not the machine. And what do we do with grease once it loses its viscosity? We take it out and we put more grease in there. That's what your status is. That's what you should have been realizing early on and understand that, to be honest with you, you ain't shit. And what you think that you're contributing and it's indispensable and this thing won't work without me. It worked before you got there, and it'll work once they put you out. So it's been devastating, especially been very devastating to Black women who have gone to school, gotten degrees, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they utilize those degrees to go work for white entities. And when those white entities decide that you are no longer wanted, welcome, or needed, they're gonna cut your throat. And where you at?
Mm. So, Doc, you agree that it's a state of emergency, but you disagree that it's not going to wipe away the Black middle class, because you say that there is no Black middle class.
No Black middle class. I mean, if there was a Black middle class, let's be honest about this. How long would it take? How many checks can you miss? How many? Better question is quite simply, do you notice when your check post?
Mm.
Because if you notice when your check post, that means that you're using some portion of that check to live. And you're middle class? No, you're working class. You're no different than our parents' generation. The main difference is that you might be able to look at and say you're not a sharecropper in the South anymore. So you've sort of been able to get a paying job, a salary job. But as far as that giving you true wealth, come on now, come on, no. No, there is no middle class. I'm not talking about a Black middle class. There is no middle class. Let these white folk who claim that they're middle class lose their job. How long before it falls apart? The only
Mm.
the only thing that they often have in their favor over us when you're talking about finances is that their parents or grandparents were able to enrich themselves in some way off of the labor of poor folk. So it's not, one of my friends, he was he was trying to close on a house, and they said, well, we can get you in this house if you can put down, it was like $100,000. Now
Mm.
he was barely able to get his credit straight. And you think he gonna come up with $100,000? And the
Mm.
banker says to him, well, why don't you just call your parents and get a loan from them? And he said, shit, they thinking about moving in with me.
Mm.
So
Mm.
you're
Mm.
talking about it's the same thing with looking at a Walmart or a chain restaurant. They can lose money in one or two locations because they got 30 or 40 locations making money. But when you only got one location, when you the lead dog and you hit a rough financial stretch, it all can fall apart for you immediately.
Mm. So, Doc, then what do you see as the long-term consequences of the DEI purge for Black workers, students, and institutions? What do you see with that?
They've lost money and influence that they'll never get back. You'll never get that money back. That money is gone. Let's just be honest about it. You'll never get it back. It's sort of like if you're driving and you get a flat tire and you say, no, I gotta make this time back up. You can drive like a bat out of hell.
Mm.
You never recapture that time that you lost right there.
Hmm.
Because if you didn't have the tire issue and you drove like a bat out of hell, you'd still be further ahead than you are right now. So in many ways, it's devastating. However, it's devastating for a reason that many people don't want to admit. And it's devastating because it has disrupted their ability to be hyper consumers, their ability to be so materialistic, because they weren't saving anything anyway. And that's an issue, a major issue. And it's Kanye West said this in All Falls Down, because they made us hate ourselves and love their wealth. That's why Shorty holler, where the ball is at. Talking about attempting to buy self-esteem.
Mm.
And our people have tried to buy self-esteem. They're trying to be somebody in this world. And truly, if you know the somebodies, like I've met a couple somebodies. There was a guy at Ohio State. He was a Schottenstein. And if you're in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, you'll know Schottensteins. It's a notable Jewish family. They have these department stores and all these other things. The Ohio State basketball arena is named the Schottenstein Center. Okay, that type of money. You don't see this guy flossing. You don't need to.
Mm-hmm.
He just shows up as he is, because he knows what he has and he knows what he's about, and he ain't trying. He don't need to. So I think that's money that will never be retrieved in general, but it's really going to be harsh as far as the consequences go upon those who are managing their money correctly and building something. They're the ones that I'm talking about when I say they're going to really be harmed by this. These Negroes who are living paycheck to paycheck, even on a six-figure income, they just going to be broker.
Wow. What should Black professionals understand about the psychological impact of being targeted through policy? And do you think if Gavin Newsom he's the quote unquote front runner from what I'm understanding?
California governor, yeah.
Yes. And do you think that he will
Well,
undo?
let's deal with the first part. I lose multi-part questions. What should Black professionals
understand about the psychological impact of being targeted through policy?
I would argue that Black professionals, if they're truly professionals, because we can have an entire conversation about what is a professional and what isn't. Many people who think that they're professionals or have careers actually have jobs. You're a fucking worker. Okay. You're plug and play. They're going to sit you at a desk and tell you to answer these phones. They're going to give you an advertising job and let you doodle and play all day long. If you were truly a professional, you should be able to take those professional skills and not miss a beat. Create your own. The idea of being entrepreneurial in spirit. If you are a professional. Now, if that's not possible, let's begin to realistically begin to evaluate what your worth actually is, because apparently it was not high for the company that just let you go, and it damn sure ain't high for you because you ain't broke off and did your own thing. The message that they should take from that is that if you don't build your own, you're really exposed to what can occur. And to be fair, that exposure is not going, it might be lessened, but it's not going to go away with you doing your own thing either. Because many of our people will leave a company and go create their own company to try to do business with that company because they think they're going to get more money. So when that company disappears, your business disappears. So no one is safe. That's what Black professionals need to understand. And they need to begin to live their lives like they were raised, working class, watching your money, building for the future. What our parents, our ancestors did. They didn't make a lot of money, but they were able to make it through. This generation that is making sometimes 2, 3, 4 times the amount of money,
Mhm.
act as if they can't cope. And the reason they can't cope is because they eating high on the hog.
Mm. Definitely, definitely. And Gavin Newsom, if he makes it into the White House, you think he's going to um, roll back, dismantle the things that Trump put in that
So,
are so detrimental?
well, I mean, he's going to roll back the things because that's going to cater to his base. Make no mistake about it. But for Black folk, that's not going to solve your problem because you were not the primary beneficiaries, white women were, of DEI. So what you're going to see is white women get a significant bump in welcome back. Black folk are not going to get that. Many of you are going to get your job, get a job or get your jobs back or what have you, but not at the level and the rate that other groups are because other groups were benefiting and have been benefiting from this from the moment of the 1970s when Black political leaders unwisely allowed affirmative action to become hooked into the word minority. Make no mistake about it, affirmative action was your reparations. It was aimed at Black folk, at getting them into the system. And you allowed for them to sort of change the language on it so that now it means anyone except for heterosexual white men. And so, what these heterosexual white men actually did, and is absolutely genius, they put their companies and their corporations in their wives' names, probably
Mm.
under threat of if you try and leave with my company, I'm gonna kill you. You, the kid, then the dog, Mr. Cartwright will kill everybody under the roof. So now these companies, which yesterday were owned by white males, are now able to access contracts and bid on things because they have voila overnight a minority owned business, and that minority is a white woman.
Mm.
So that was and that's been going on for the longest time. So the idea of bringing DEI back,
Mhm.
it'll loosen the allowances of what you're able to say on campuses and things like that. However, Black women weren't black folk in general were not the primary beneficiaries of DEI. So bringing that back is not going to bring them back.
Mm. 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 So then, Doc, then did really 300,000? I think it was Black women lose their jobs in DC.
I believe so. Yeah. But the question becomes, well, is this, were they DEI hires? That's the question that has never been addressed. You're talking about a very different situation where Elon Musk was talking about, look, we need to trim some of the fat. Now, why is the fat there? It's the damage to the racial brand and the idea of Black women. Let's be honest. When you think about a Black woman, who do you see? Your mind doesn't go to somebody who is refined, professional, and what have you. Come on, your mind goes to Bunquisha because, because the squeaky wheel is the one that you're going to notice, and that's in your mind. comes directly out of your mind for whatever reason, that's who you think about. So when you're talking about the idea of them losing their jobs, let's be very, very, very clear on this. It isn't because of DEI necessarily. It is because you weren't brought in because of DEI. It is because the damage done to the racial brand and the understanding that if I let you go, there ain't a damn thing that y'all can do about it. Once again, going back to that question, can you whoop my ass?
Mm.
You better hurry up. You better hurry up and get in your Audi
Mm.
over there to the food pantry before it's all gone.
Mm-hmm.
What are your choices? What are your options? What is your response to them getting rid of you?
Right. Right.
And you don't
Now,
have one.
you also, Doc, you said that you're not a professional, you're just a worker, unless you are in business for yourself. Now, if
No,
we're just looking,
no. That's not what I said.
okay,
What I said is that if you are a professional, professionals can work for companies and corporations.
mhm,
No, make no mistake about that. That is possible. However, if you are so important with your professional self within that corporation, that business, whatever, you bring tremendous value to them. You should be able to pack those skills up and venture off and do your own thing. It's kind of like, remember Jungle Fever?
yeah,
Remember Flipper, Wesley Snipes' character? He was an
mhm,
architect. And when
mhm,
he was finally leaving and he's walking out, he kept pointing at stuff that was on the wall. Mine, I did that. Mine.
right,
Okay.
mhm,
If he is that skilled and that capable, he ain't gonna have no problems because these his work speaks for itself. Now, if you've been let go and that so-called those professional skills will not keep you afloat by becoming an entrepreneur going to do your own thing. Let's be clear on what you are. You're a worker. You have a job. And as soon as one entity lets you go, your response was not, you know what, I've been wanting to branch off. They did me a favor. No, it was who hiring because
mhm,
I need to get plugged in somewhere.
mhm.
Because maybe you are not a professional after all. Maybe you're just a well-paid master's degree having worker.
Wow, wow. Now, Doc, I know you're familiar with the crisis at HBCUs addressing
Which,
the.
which one?
Well, Morgan State did a study
Mhm.
saying that 25% drop in Black male enrollment.
Mhm.
Now, is this a signal? Is it saying something? What? How are we to decide what this actually means?
I think it means a lot of things and can be interpreted in a lot of ways. I'll give you the encouraging. You want the encouraging, the good news or the bad news first?
Give me the good news first.
Okay, the good news. The good news would be that Black men have finally woke up and realized that at their best, they are providers.
Mhm.
For them to have a family, they have to develop a way, find a way to be able to support a wife and some dependents. The path to
Okay.
doing that is not necessarily sitting up in a classroom learning Plato's Republic. You know that you're not a reader. You know that a life of the mind is not what you really want. and you know that many of your friends who went off to college are only going because they just finished 12th grade and now going on a college campus is the equivalent of 13th grade.
Mhm.
Those who don't go, and this is the optimistic position, have gone to trade school, are learning something some skill that they can apply in the world as a worker or eventually an entrepreneur, being a plumber, being an HVAC, what have you, to earn money, which will allow them to have dignity, which will make them a very attractive, should be an attractive marital catch for somebody. That's the good part, that the decline could very well be the realization and understanding that the path to success does not have to be made necessarily
Mhm.
by going onto a college campus, which is a wonderful thing. The bad news, the negative news would be that we are not preparing our males to be able to survive, let alone compete in a world that is going to be predicated upon something other than a a manufacturing economy. That we move from a manufacturing economy into a technological slash service economy. If they get left behind, and let's be clear that that technology and computers and computer programming and all of that has replaced the line worker, the assembly line worker. That could be what that means. That we don't prepare them for school, for a quote unquote life of the mind, and they can't compete because they don't have the basic skills of reading, writing, and arithmetic. However, the problem with that analysis is going to be AI, because AI has come for the computer programming jobs. AI has come like a beast as far as technology goes. It's just what it is. There is no getting around that. So for Black males who are engaged on a college campus, they need to focus their attention upon doing something almost manual or something that makes them a inventor or a creator.
Mhm.
The idea of being able to do it from the way that we did it
Mhm.
is like a relic. And I have a former colleague who had taped his lectures. He was teaching a military history class, and he taped his lectures. He had went all the way to West Point and was did some taping up there. He did a phenomenal job. When he decided that he was going to leave the university,
Mhm.
they came into his office and took his computer apart and took the hard drive out. They said that's their intellectual property.
Oh, wow.
Said he did that on our time. Now,
Wow.
we've never replaced him. And the reason that we've never replaced him is we don't need to. They just show his videos and things like that during the military history class. So AI has come in and no one is safe. Kind of like Mob Deep, there's a war going on outside. No one is safe from. Yeah, that's what's going on.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean, think about it, and that was probably 15 years ago.
Mm. Wow.
No one is safe. No, it's just what it is. So it's a position of almost pick your poison. There is no 100% guarantee on either path that you go on. So to talk about a decline in Black enrollment on HBCU campuses is not necessarily a negative signal of what's going on.
Mhm. Mm.
Because how do you absorb these males when they finish with their school, with their education? My advisor, Dr. Warren Van Tyne, he was an old time communist. Dr. Van Tyne said this to me. He said, "Well, undergrads and community colleges, they're nothing but holding cells for people that we don't have a job for in the economy."
Mm. Wow.
And so it's sort of to touch upon the question that you asked earlier about the Black professional class and the middle class and what have you. They're in the same boat as everybody else. You're not immune to this. The one thing that we've seen, one of the things we've seen in recent labor reports is that companies are not hiring, but they're also not firing. They
Mm.
want they want to keep the talent that they've developed inside on the position that they're in. And it's very similar to what we're seeing with the housing market. People are not able to sell their homes out of fear. It's not that no one would buy their home, but where am I going? Where can I take this money and go make a better deal for myself?
Mm.
Those moments are kind of gone. When you look at the situation of the worker, put yourself as a worker in one of these companies right now that are not firing, but they're not hiring either. Do you step out there and have that? I always remember this moment in the movie Ray, when Bo King Woodbine was talking to Ray Charles, and he says, "Are you sure, Ray?" Because he was getting ready to leave the band. He said, "You sure, Ray? Ray, it's cold out there, Ray. It's cold out there." Do any of these people in a government entity in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, do they leave their job to go find something else?
Mm.
Nah. Sit your ass right here and be happy that you got a job. Because at this moment, there is a larger supply of people seeking work than there are companies hiring. So that means that ownership, employers, they have the upper hand. You,
Mm.
you think you can't be replaced today?
Mhm.
They better start listening to, remember that Beyonce song, "You Must Not Know About Me"?
Right.
I know
Right.
another you in a minute. Matter of fact, he'll be here in a minute. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what companies are saying to people right now. Okay, let them tell you to come in on a Saturday. Go ahead
Mm.
and tell them no.
Wow. Let me ask you this, and
What?
this so they redid the credit union things and redoing home mortgages. And so one thing that they did was they didn't knock out the credit report, but they made it on a lesser standard and then adding things like your cell phone bill,
Hmm.
your water bill and these things, saying that, yeah, you got good history because you're paying them on time or whatever.
Hmm.
And now that applies to you're able to buy a house, and you're able to stretch the mortgage out 60 years, 70 years, these type
I
of
saw
things.
I saw something today where they said they're giving car loans 100 months.
What?
stretching it out for 100 months. They said that this is the year that the average new car that is purchased is going to be $50,000 and above. So they're giving people Cardinals for like 8.5 years.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this is hiding a sickness, or
Hold on a second. Let me say this, sort of a warning to people who are buying. And I said this 20 years ago in Columbus, Ohio, at a barbershop. Brother came in there bragging about he had one of those self-driving cars. Okay. And I said, look, man, you better be careful with that shit. I said, because them people going to be calling about their money. You ain't going to want to answer your phone. You're going to go get in your car and it's going to drive itself back to that dealership. They're going to be there standing outside like, yo, we've been trying to get in contact with you. Okay, but go ahead, bro.
So do you think that this is the sign of a sickness, or it is the sign of death?
You said this. What is this?
This is the extending the home, paying off long time, the dropping down of the credit report and adding your cell phone and
trying to work with you.
Is this a sign of a sickness, or this is the death? What do you see with that?
I mean, I see many things with that. One of the foremost things I see is that people are making unwise financial decisions. There are some people who probably should never own a house. As difficult as that is to accept, you probably should never own a house, because quite simply, you never really own the house, because if you were able to get the mortgage paid off, you still got to pay property taxes. So I say that to say this, that you need to make the best financial decision for you according to your evaluation criterion. Don't try to keep up with the Joneses, because the Joneses ain't doing so well. And you could very well get yourself in a situation where it all falls apart. Or you're sitting up in a house and you're so doggone stressed that you can't do anything. And one thing goes wrong, and Lord knows something is going to go wrong. Then you're sunk. And coming from a poor or working class background, who you going to call that's going to float you 15 grand?
Right.
So do I see it as a sign of a sickness? I believe that Americans have been sick. American consumers have been sick since Jimmy Carter spoke about it. Carter told him, he said, listen, quit living on credit, because that bill will come due at some point. And of course, Jimmy Carter was only a one-term president. Lets you know that Americans did not appreciate what it is that he said. And of course, Jimmy Carter was a businessman. He was a peanut farmer. Okay. Mm-hmm. So Americans, and when we talk about Black folk in America, ironically, the guy who I think sums up the ratio of how we need to look at this is Ross Perot. When Ross Perot told Black America, he said, you know that when the economy has a cold, your community has pneumonia. So when I talk about hyper-consumerism, it's really bad within Black America, because we spend everything that we have. Many of us do. You go back and you look at the Montgomery bus boycott, 1955. What broke the back of the bus boycott? It wasn't that the white folk lost the will to keep you subordinate. No, Christmas was coming. And downtown businesses didn't know if they could survive another Christmas without the Negro dollar being accessed. That's what happened with the Montgomery bus boycott. That's what made them white racists in Alabama submit. It was the money. So on the one hand, with consumerism, we've been sick for a very long time. But this time around, let's be very clear. The economy is sick, and the economy no longer has the ability or the will to absorb hardcore employables.
Mm.
They just don't. What are what are you going to do when they won't hire you? That's the problem. And we're moving towards, and we constantly talk about this idea of socialism. And we don't want to be a socialist nation, this and that, and blah blah. Get over that shit. Because within 10 years, max, you're going to be looking at a mandatory income contribution. They're going to have to start giving people checks so that they can survive, similar to how we do with food stamps and in welfare. You're going to be getting a check because otherwise the economy is going to grind to a halt because you do not have money to go out and buy goods. And if you don't buy goods, corporations are not going to be able to stay afloat.
Mm-hmm.
And 20 years from now, it's going to be even worse because everything will be mechanized. What you gonna do? Go and stand in between two robots trying to do something? It will collapse. And the best thing that you can tell people, and this goes back to making the best decision for yourself. The best thing that you can actually do is to invest your money in these corporations so that as they continue to grow stronger and what have you, you get some benefit off of it as well. Otherwise, you will get crushed.
Mm.
You may get crushed anyway, but at least you'll put your money where their money is and try and survive that way.
Mm-hmm.
So the economy is sick, the people are sick, and there is no antidote for this. None whatsoever.
Mm.
My wife, she look here, Timu. I'm like, you don't even do, you ain't doing Amazon. We get this from Timu. Okay, my puppy pads for my dogs, Timu. Yeah. The world has changed. America is no longer the only big dog economically. And those who are the deciders for American corporations and what have you, they go for self. Period. We just had this week the company. They did. I want to say it was Tyson, because it was surprising that it was a beef processing center. They're in a town with 11 or 12,000 people total, and that's of course including children. And they're shutting that processing plant down. They have 3,400 employees. I mean, really think about what that means. And their argument, and this is sort of the reason why when you're talking about everything being connected, the reason that they made that move is that cattle production is so low. So they don't have work for their workers. So 3,400 of them are out the door. And they said it was like maybe 30 to 34% of the total population for the county. The children there, you could reduce that adult population to probably about 5,000 to 6,000. So what is that going to mean for Main Street? What is that going to mean for the restaurant? What is that going to mean for the bakery? What is that going to mean for the school supply? You're done.
Yeah.
And you didn't. Yeah, I mean, you didn't do anything negative or wrong, other than probably not looking out for yourself. And it's the scary thing, and this takes us back to the Black women getting their throats cut up in Virginia, DC, and Maryland with the government entities. I hope you got a brother that's bringing in a check.
Wow.
Because they look here. Who was it? Was it Lil Boosie? INDEP, independent. Yeah. Now you're looking at this from a whole different perspective. Our ancestors knew something. They were black, and they knew that they were trying to make it in a white nation. And it's easier to make it with 2 incomes than it is 1. So what y'all gonna do? They do the sister wives thing, where you and your sister live together, put all y'all kids together under one roof, create damn near a cult. You're in trouble. And then the sad part about it is quite simply this: you got brothers out here who are wolves, and they getting ready to eat. They getting ready to eat. They gonna eat well.
Exactly.
Yeah, they doing. You heard of binge eating? They gonna be doing revenge eating.
So, Doc, for our closing question that we have for you, as we look at this 100-year mark since Dr. Woodson started his work, he famously said that the miseducated man would seek the back door even if one wasn't there. In 2026, the state of emergency, what is the one psychological back door our people is still running towards that we must close forever if we are going to finally engineer our own sovereignty?
Employment. Employment. We need to start grooming our children that the natural order of what we need for them to do is to get an education, maybe go get employment in the industry that they want to be in, study everything that's in there. You're not going in there just to get a check. The bigger part and the bigger reason that you're in there and involved with those people is predicated upon the idea of learning the business. How did this business start? How do they maintain themselves? And what is their future? And then you got to leave. As scary and as difficult as that seems to be, because you can always go back to that industry and work again. But we need to embolden our children and our people to take your shot, because we cannot support you if you don't even take your shot. So that would be that back door. Otherwise, we're going to be in the same place 50 years from now that we are now, if not worse. And understanding that all of this ingenuity, all of this energy that we have, we need to use it for our own personal and therefore eventually collective good. We need entrepreneurs. We don't need very many more political scientists. We don't need any more sociologists. We need business people.
Definitely. And any closing remarks, Doc?
Yeah, man, just happy to be here, man. Happy to be here. I saw somebody put up that they were freezing or it's cold or something where they're at. And I got all the windows open, back door open, trying to get a breeze to come up through here, man. Got my fan right here because it's hot. I'm trying to regulate, trying to not be up in here sweating.
I know that's real.
In the words of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, you Negroes have unwisely decided to live in a bad part of the planet Earth. You need to come near the equator. Okay, where your people thrive at this. We sun people. We ain't ice people. Okay. However, in saying that, 'cause I don't want no blood on my hands. Don't take no black ass to Venezuela right now. That's not going to be a good look right about now, because trust me, if they take you hostage, he ain't coming to get you. It's just not. It's not going to happen. So stay away from Venezuela, but come south, and I yield.
All right, thank you, Doc. So we've covered a lot of ground today. We looked at the 100 years of history from Woodson's miseducation in 1926 to the state of emergency we are facing in 2026. To everyone listening, Dr. Jones has given us the academic and historical proof that the systems around us aren't designed for our success. My job, our job, your job is to take this information and turn it into power. To take this information and turn it into power. We talked about the difference between celebrating your history and weaponizing your history. Understand that celebration gets you nothing, but you use it as a weapon of war to get you everything. Everything. Coming from the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, they called it do for self. Do for self. We are at war, not a war of hatred, but a war of construction. We're conducting a war on dehumanization of our people and building a new reality where we don't need to ask for permission to be great. We can be our natural selves, but it starts with our ability to do for self. Period, point blank. If we're not going to do for self, we're still begging, because we are depending on that person to give us a job so that we can go to the grocery store and buy groceries to feed our family. If that stops, how will we feed our family? Freedom. There's a responsibility in you, in us, if we're to be free. So let's take this wisdom that was given to us today and turn it into our power. Because we're not just living for today, we're building for tomorrow, each and every day. So as we always say, you kill the nigga in you, I'm going to kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black first, today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.
Peace.
So you better get the message and get it straight.
You're going to need some bridge work. It's simple as that.
Because we're living in judgment. We're living in